we are a unique company that is producing copper in a very sustainable way. We have a simple business model. We have predictability of operational results, predictability of free cash flow, and we already have a robust capital return policy in place to return the capital to the shareholders, the owners of the company.
Hello, welcome to Assay TV. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Aurora Davidson, who is President, CEO, and Director of Amerigo Resources. Amerigo are working on the MVC operation, which is processing tailings from the massive El Teniente copper mine in Chile. Aurora, great to see you today. Start things off. You spoke with Assay TV back in April 2022. So what's been going on in the last sort of 4 months?
Thank you, Leo. It's great to be here with the Assay. 2022 has been a strong year for Amerigo. Let me just tell you a little bit about our operations, and then I'll move on to our continued delivery on returning capital to shareholders. So on the operational front line, we are trending over our annual copper guidance. That's a great place for any company to be at. Our operations have continued to operate quite well in a very predictable way. No disruptions. Our plant availability last quarter, just to give you a number, was 99.2%. So it really doesn't get any better than that. We have our annual CapEx projects proceeding on time and budget. We have the adequate amount of water reserves, which is a critical input for any mining operation. So I am very, very pleased with the excellent work of our operations team in Chile. Now, with respect to what has happened on the aspect of returning capital to shareholders, as you know, we are a dividend-paying company. We have declared 3 quarterly dividends so far this year, each of 3 cents per share Canadian. And this next record dividend date ahead of us is happening soon. We have a record payment date, record date of August 31st, payment date of September the 30th, sorry. And we're paying about $4 million US per quarter. So far this year, 12 million US have been or will be returned to shareholders on the basis of the regular dividend. And we also completed ahead of time, ahead of schedule, our annual normal course issuer bid. We retired 10.75 million common shares of Amerigo. We used US $13.7 million in doing so. So as you can see, Leo, it has been a good year for the Amerigo shareholders.
Fantastic. It's been a tougher on the copper price side of things, a tougher quarter since we last spoke. Copper prices down a little bit. Can you touch now on your sort of quarterly results that you just released and how the lower prices affected that a little bit?
Sure. That's a good question, and I was expecting that. So the second quarter of 2022 was essentially the first quarter in almost 2 years where we didn't post net earnings. And there were 2 reasons for this. The first one is a very easy one, so I'll just get it out first. We had fewer operating days, and the reason for the lower number of operating days is because we had our annual maintenance plant shutdown occurring during the second quarter. We knew this was going to happen, so there's always going to be one leaner quarter on any given year, and that was in Q2 in this year. And the second reason was, as you mentioned, lower average copper prices occurring in the second quarter compared to what we saw on the first quarter. But in a way, we also had been working along a projection of lower copper prices probably occurring this year. When we released our annual guidance at the start of 2022, we guided for an average annual copper price of $3.09 per pound. If you look at what has actually occurred, we're as of today with an average annual copper price of $4.21 per pound. So things are trending over our original plan, but you always have those quotas on a quarterly basis. that have an impact. And for any higher average copper price in one quarter, you'll have a lower one on a following one. But that doesn't mean that the fundamentals of the market have changed. And we're actually trending well compared to what we had expected in our own planning and guidance. So to recap, within a year, you'll always have some better quarters than others. Those are totally expected and totally explainable. We have two main drivers for profitability at Amerigo. One of that is copper production. The other one is copper prices. And both of those performed on the lower side of in Q2, but averaging out the year-to-date actual versus what we had expected, we're trending over plan.
I mean, you're always going to get fluctuations, and I guess the key is having a healthy balance sheet so you can survive these fluctuations. Yeah. Absolutely.
Volatility in the copper market will always occur. It's just great that it happens at average higher levels than what was seen in prior years. So we're in a safe zone.
Absolutely. On your recent quarterly investors call, you mentioned that you're sort of actively changing the way you tell the Amerigo story to investors. Can you elaborate a little bit further on what you meant by that?
Sure. That's a good question, and I appreciate you asking that. Messaging to the investor community has to be consistent with what the company is working on and what are the key objectives of a given organization. In our case, for the last 2 years, we were working on two very identifiable messages. One of them was we needed to have reliability of results, reliability of and predictability of operational results, and we have achieved that. So we have a very good track record already behind us. And we have to capitalize on that. The other aspect of the messaging was that we wanted to put in place a robust shareholder return policy, but we have that in place now. So instead of messaging as to what we need to achieve, it's now time to message as to what are the significant strengths that Amerigo has that give us a distinctive position with respect to other issuers. And so what are those strengths? One of them is yield. If you look at our yield, we're currently paying 12 cents Canadian per share per annum on a series of quarterly dividends that are representing a very, very robust yield just on the basis of those quarterly dividends. It's a yield of 9.68% if we use our last quarter end share price. But on top of those dividends, there is the potential for performance dividends based on the high probability of sustained high copper prices in the future. So yield is one important aspect of our story. The other one is the fact that we are not essentially a traditional mining operation. I've always said we are a copper factory, not a copper mine. What we do is we process waste material to produce copper that would otherwise be lost in the system. And in doing so, we have very robust ESG credentials. So the strengths are yield, consistency of operations, non-mining focus of operations, and ESG credentials. And those have to be told in order to really showcase what Amerigo is all about.
Absolutely. And just to remind our viewers, I mean, El Teniente, the mine the tailings you're processing from, that mine has been in operation, I believe, since sort of 1819, and the tailings you're processing, how far back do they go?
Well, we have the current tailings coming from the day-to-day production, and we have historical tailings that go back to 1935.
Yeah, so back in 1935, they weren't so good at processing things, and there's a lot of copper still left in them. So that's quite a sort of a unique story for you there. To go back to sorry, you mentioned this performance dividend that you're looking to pay. How would that work, and what should investors expect? How that would work?
Let me back up a little bit into why we have two types of dividends, because that's part of the story. We have two tiers because we have we want to achieve a basis under which we have a quarterly dividend that is safe, that is sustainable, despite any copper price volatility that may occur from quarter to quarter. If you want to achieve that safety objective, then the rate of the quarterly dividend has to be at a level that is reasonable enough that it can absorb that copper price volatility from period to period. If you do that, you may be leaving too much money behind on the balance sheet, and that's not what we want to do. And thus, the appearance of the second tier of dividends, which are the performance dividends. When we're talking about the performance dividend, the key message is flexibility. Those are dividends that are going to have total flexibility in terms of when they can be declared. It could happen once a year, 2 times a year. It may not happen in any given year. There is no rule as to when they could occur. They don't have to be declared concurrently with the quarterly dividend. They can be declared for any amount. So in reality, you have one layer that is all about safety and providing that secure yield to shareholders. And then you've got another layer of flexibility. When you have the two of them put together, you really have a very robust vehicle that can really distribute the right amount of money to shareholders, despite the volatility that is inherent in the copper market. So, there is no magic formula as to when or in what quantum those performance dividends are going to be declared, or for what amount. It is going to be that balancing act between the reliability of the sustainable dividends and our commitment to returning shareholder capital and not leaving necessary cash on the balance sheet.
Absolutely. I mean, this returning capital to shareholders seems to be a real driving force of the company. Yeah.
It is because we don't have a substantial amount of capital expenditures required. We have invested the amount of money that we need to have in our plant in order for it to operate as it is operating. And in absence of that, it is the shareholders who have to be benefiting from the operating cash flow that we generate through the operation.
Excellent. Okay, so to wrap things up, what would be the one thing you'd want our viewers to take away from this interview?
Well, it's a very simple and essential message. I am very, very excited about the long-term outlook for Amerigo. And why? Why do I say that? Because we are a unique company that is producing copper in a very sustainable way. We have a simple business model. We have predictability of operational results, predictability of free cash flow, and we already have a robust capital return policy in place to return the capital to the shareholders, the owners of the company. So I think that wraps it up, and that would be the recap of the messaging, Leo.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us that update on Amerigo Resources. Aurora Davidson, thank you very much.
Perfect. I really appreciate it, Leo.